Hello, I'm Dr. Sarah Schmallenberger. I'm a guest artist here at McPhail, and I'm so glad that you have decided to work on this really neat etude for your audition. So after I worked on it myself, I went to my own students and I put the music down in front of them and I said, how would you go about reading and practicing for this etude if you were auditioning? And I want to share with you some of the wisdom that came from my studio about how to even approach this etude. They were all very different. And what I want to impress to you is that everybody has their own way of approaching new works. So one of my students, who's a senior, said that she would go through every pitch without rhythm and just play through the notes to see how they feel and if she can get them. Now, you have a recording. She did not. So she literally put up her horn and just went da, 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 and got through and just got a face feel. And I said, all right, that's a lot of work to go through note by note. And so she clarified it. She said, okay, so what I would do is she'd go through quarter notes every couple bars and then put the rhythm to it. So that was her way. Another student looked at this and immediately saw all those 16th note passages and went, I would want to avoid those. And I said, all right, so you want to avoid those. And so then what? She said, all right, I start with the stuff I want to avoid. And I thought that was brilliant, because she's facing whatever fear or trepidation. And she too looked at that and said, I would go just note by note and see where that goes. Still another said that she would start at the end. And by that, do you see we've got like an opening and then an andante and an A? She suggested starting at the end. And she played through it and she said, I'm just gonna play through it warts and all to see if I can even do this. But she said, and I would want the metronome on. And so she put the metronome and read through it. And from that, I asked, why did you do that? And she said, I looked at A and saw a lot of the same figures that are in the rest of the etude, so that when I finally try and put the whole piece together, I will be coming to the end at something familiar. So you see that all of those ideas are very different approaches, and they're all workable. And finally, I asked each student, how much time would this take for you to work on it? And one student who's a freshman looked this over, and she said, well, yeah, I was in MYS, and I was in Gitzies when I was younger. And I said, so you had auditions, what did you do? And she looked at this and she said, tell whoever's working on this that if they have a minimal amount of time, if they just spent a half hour every day for at least a week to 10 days, they'd really make progress. So that gives you a time frame. I don't know whether that would work for you, but so working on what my students suggested, you've got the notes, you've got a recording now, I would go and pick things apart. And if you look at those first two measures, do you see the accents on G, B flat, and E flat? You want to come out on this etude of here I am. And if you just take those three notes, G, and work on just centering those. I'm using a tuner right here and making sure that I have a good centered sound, that it's not too sharp. Here would be too sharp. So the G was too sharp, the E flat was too low. So if I really center it, I centered it in intonation and also articulation. So once you have those sound pitches together, then put in the other stuff. From Hear that? So you're scaffolding the framework of this. And so you can do that with all the other figures that are kind of that dotted 8th, 16th, and I call them Amsterdam, Amsterdam, Amsterdam. The other figures that I saw that were kind of grouped together, do you see those 16th note passages? In measure 6, we have one starting on G. Measure 12 starts on E flat. 15 is on D. And so I would put on my metronome and probably put it here. Whoops. And I would just go with this, that's the 8th note. If we go to the first one. And then if that is a challenge, break it down to put them in 3s and then so if you go from 3 to 4 to 5 to 6. And do that with all of the 16th note groupings to where when you're finally at the tempo, you could practice all of these 16th groupings at the same tempo. And to get them in the same rhythm, but also the same articulation and style. And you just put those together and isolate them. That way, once you've done the Amsterdam, Amsterdams, and the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, once you then start going through the whole etude, you have these familiar islands of, I've worked on this. So that the measures that are not that, they kind of come right out of like, ooh, those aren't matching. And what do I need to work on? So practicing things that you can find are similar to where you can get them consistent in pitch, articulation, and style will help you frame in your etude. And then finally, looking at those fortissimo passages. Wow, for horns, we can go all over the map with pitch and sound. I'm going to try and sound gross here at measure 21, 22, and 23. And this is kind of out of control. I missed notes, the sound was blatty, and I was at the very edge of how loud I can play. Now, believe it or not, I don't want to warn you away from doing that. In your practice room, find where the gross is. Only by going to the extreme can you kind of pull that back. So I'm going to do that again. So if I then, with my ears and my air, go, let's pull that back to a more reasonable. I've kind of framed and shaped the tone. So in your practice room, dare yourself to go to how far you can go. Same thing for the piano. Do you see it 17? What's so soft that you can't play it? Little too soft to be falling. So this is too loud. But what's in between there? Experiment with going to the extremes of piano. And notice that when you've got a crescendo, you're a tendency to go sharp. So how do you cover that? you could spend a whole lot of time just on those measures to make it all of a sudden sound so mysterious. So from going to initial, where are the notes, where are the rhythms that my students suggested, to pinpointing specific areas that you can work on and frame it, once you've done that kind of what we call in music woodshedding work, after you've done those practice sessions where you've pinpointed, go through the whole etude. I also suggest you take your cell phone and record yourself. Once you've got going through the etude, if you're going every day, as my students suggested, do all that woodshedding work, end with playing the whole etude through and recording it, then go away. The next day, open up that phone, listen to the recording, oh, yeah, this is getting better. And you'll be able to diagnose what needs work the next session. I'm really proud of all of you for going through and doing this. It's challenging. It's scary. When I recorded the etude today, I felt nervous, and listening to the recording, I heard little things that I didn't like that were burned. You know, we are not on an instrument that is perfect. So choose the values and the goals that you want to set, and know that you are in good company with all of us who take these risks to be vulnerable and put our stuff out there, because the reward is you get to make music, and it's risky and fun at the same time. Good luck.